You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. I am not a fan of lists. We do our feigned indignation over my sports talk radio guy of a random summertime list throughout the summer when many content creators and writers are starved for college football content, and so they come up with inane lists, and people get very worked up over lists and feign disrespect and whatnot. It was interesting to me today, though, to come across this. Adam Rittenberg over at ESPN graded out second-year coaches. So keep in mind, Brian Kelly is part of a group that is now, midway through their second season at their current job. And it was a pretty notable class of coaches where, of course, Billy Napier went to Florida and Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for USC and Brent Venables left Clemson for Oklahoma to become their head coach. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU, as we all know. Mike Elko was hired at Duke. And then there's some others like Kalen DeBoer, who became the head coach at the University of Washington. Dan Lanning in his second year at Oregon. I mean, think about all in 1 year. LSU, Florida, Oklahoma, Southern Cal, Oregon. I mean, it's a pretty incredible list. Notre Dame, obviously, when Brian Kelly left there. And I think what was interesting, I won't bury the lead here. They gave Brian Kelly a C. They noted that his year one record of 10-4, winning the West, SEC runner-up, they gave him a B+ last year, which I honestly think, considering what he inherited, the absolute disaster he inherited from Ed Ogeron, a roster with 38 scholarship players, to beat Alabama, win the West, win 10 games, that's nothing short of incredible. But they gave him a B+ a year ago. Again, it's just his ranking, whatever. But at 3-2 this year after the B+ a year ago, and ESPN's FPI projecting LSU to win 8 games now, essentially saying LSU is going to lose 2 more. They gave him a C. They have him as graded as a C as of right now with the job that he's done. One SEC coordinator that was quoted in this piece, quoted anonymously, by the way, just says, an SEC coordinator anonymously quoted said, quote, "I don't know what the F's going on there. This isn't their first game. They're near the bottom of the country on defense. It hasn't been a one-game deal. The thing that stood out to me against FSU is honestly on defense, when it got out of hand, they tapped." That coordinator is not wrong. I mean, LSU did quit. That game was far closer than most would have you believe. I mean, LSU led at half. They had 2 possessions inside the 10-yard line that came away with no points. LSU could have, theoretically, led by as many as 17 points at halftime against Florida State. You were in a 1-score game with the ball on the first play of the fourth quarter. You missed a deep shot, a drop ball in the end. I mean, so my point is, you were there. As much as the perception of the Florida State game is that LSU got run, they didn't. I mean, it was, go look at the final box score. I mean, you were neck and neck, and you had that turnover at the end of the third quarter, and LSU tapped. They did. And that was the really concerning part of the whole thing. And yes, the defensive issues are really concerning, and I'm not going to dismiss them, because when you put up a defensive performance like LSU did against Ole Miss, after a defensive performance like they did against Arkansas, after you couldn't get a stop in the fourth quarter, really at all in the second half against Florida State, yes, there's reason for concern there. But fair or unfair, you're judged based on expectations. Like the coach at the top with the best grade on this list at this point through year 2 is Mike Elko. They have, Mike Elko's year 1 grade was an A. They give him a solid A right now for what he's done at Duke. He was 9-4 a year ago. Brian Kelly was 10-4, won the West, played an extra game. And as of right now, they're 4-1. So they got Mike Elko number 1. Although the record to this point, the wins to this point with Elko and Kelly are identical. It's just the fact that you have much greater expectations. Never mind the fact that Brian Kelly inherited a mess of a situation. Jake Dickert at Washington State. They give him an A to this point. Kalen DeBoer at Washington. They give him an A to this point. Dan Lanning, 10-3 a year ago, undefeated right now. They give him an A-. Lincoln Riley, B+. The funniest one of all of them is Sonny Dykes. Sonny Dykes inherited a team that was sub-500. Sonny Dykes inherited a sub-500 team. Went to the national championship game in his first year. They have him as a B+. I mean, build that guy a statue, man. He got you to the national championship game 1 year after you finished sub 500. So, again, that's why it's the whole feigned indignance thing about the random list. So I'm less concerned with what Adam Rittenberg wrote about Brian Kelly and what grade he gives him, and more so just to say, as a point in the season, to sort of take account of where this program is. You know, what was interesting to me, and I remember this, I was listening to Muse and Hanny on Eagle 98.1 Game Day before the Florida State game. And Charles Hannegriff did an interview with Scott Woodward. And this stood out to me because I immediately thought of it when I saw this piece today, because it was all about the expectation, not short-term but long-term. This is what Scott Woodward said. This was just hours before LSU played Florida State. So remember context. LSU comes off of a 10-win season. A lot of expectations, preseason top 5. It's expected to be a really close game with Florida State. This is the pregame show just a couple hours before LSU and Florida State kick off in Orlando. And this is what Scott Woodward said just before the Florida State game.
I want to see progress, as far as where this program goes. And that doesn't mean just on the field wins and losses. I mean recruiting. I mean graduation and what we're doing with our kids and how we're doing it and building this foundation for a long run and a long haul, because I have high expectations for this program to be a dominant program well into the future. So long term, I think we're in very good hands. And I just warn fans, try not to live in the recruit per day moment or the win per weekend moment, but look at the long term and see where the progress is, because I think you're going to be very happy with what you see, not only this season, but in seasons to come.
So that is really, that stood out to me when I heard it. When I read this today, I thought of it immediately. I had Muse go back and pull it. That's your athletic director saying, try not to live in the week-to-week moment, like the result of one game. But are you noticing progress overall as a program? And that's really the question, where if you pull back and you look at where Brian Kelly is, 10-4 a year ago, 3-2 right now, which isn't where anybody wanted to be. 2 losses, flipping the page to October. But it's where you are. But as you look big picture of this program, are you stable? Are you more stable than you were before he showed up? I think that's a yes. Once you're stable, then you build your championship roster on top of that. Are they building a championship roster? That, I think, is the question that's fair to ask and wonder, are they moving in that direction? And a big part of that is going to be not only continuing to stack great high school recruiting classes, but also the work you do in the portal. Look, Shea Dixon was here yesterday, and Shea told us, again, this isn't my opinion, this is a guy who I respect tremendously, who I think is the best in this market at covering recruiting. Tremendous respect to all the people that do that cover recruiting. I just think Shea, for me, I think Shea does it better than anybody. And Shea's argument was that this defensive back class that LSU has committed right now, he would put up against any in the country. So if you have those reinforcements coming in and you believe it's going to elevate your secondary, and if that's really your biggest weakness right now, from the 10,000-foot view, is there reason to believe that it's going to be better? And I would think so, because I've got a 4-decade history of Brian Kelly as a head coach showing that he's going to win big, and he's going to win long term. But for LSU not just to win, but to win at a national championship level, you certainly have to improve your talent than where you are right now. That's a progress that they're continuing to go. But if you're judged by your wins and your losses, your best win, of course, was last year against Alabama. We're all going to point to it. But I'll also point out that last year, you were the first team ever to win at Florida, at Auburn in the same season. Remember that? There have been some great teams that never were able to pull that off. So, yes, your worst loss, losing to A&M, a 4-win Texas A&M team a year ago when you were a double-digit favorite, that's a terrible loss. Allowing 700 yards to Ole Miss last week, that's a terrible loss. So too was losing to Troy in 2017. But you got the right mixture, bringing in Joe Burrow, continuing to recruit and develop talent in 2019 happened. So I get that fans aren't always going to look through the prism like the athletic director does, but it was an interesting glimpse into where Scott Woodward is thinking, or where he was thinking coming into this season. And so can you actually look at this thing in totality and say, as disappointed as you are with what happened in the fourth quarter against Florida State, as nauseating as it was to watch your defense against Ole Miss, do you think as a program, as a whole, are you building a foundation upon which you can build a championship culture and a championship roster? And if so, and you plot on, regardless of the result in a given week, as much as it may suck to watch your team go up and give 55 points and 706 yards and bunch of runs somehow. All right, another chance on Saturday in Como. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.